Hey everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com, and welcome to the Daily Futures Market Outlook, where we take a look at our favorite markets and formulate an attack plan for tomorrow's trading, and that's going to be for the 19th of the month. Now, overall, we're getting a pretty good amount of movement. The markets are moving pretty well. We're getting things kind of jumping a little bit, right? But they're not really achieving a whole lot. A lot of the movement that they get early in the morning, they end up taking back going into the afternoon. So in terms of directional bias, there hasn't really been a whole lot, but at least we're getting a little bit of extra volatility. It's giving us something to trade at least, right? It's better than nothing. Now, before we jump on in, as always, make sure to swing it over to slingshotfutures.com, scroll down, and click on the Join the Daily Outlook newsletter. That's going to let you sign up for our email list that you know every single time one of these videos comes out. Along with that, in that newsletter, we talk about all kinds of different stuff. Stocks, cryptocurrencies, futures, forex, you name it, it's going to be inside there. So it's a great newsletter to get your hands on if you haven't done so already. At the bottom of the page, don't forget to check out our two primary posts that we make every single day. The first one, right before we open the live trade room, we post the live trade room morning prep levels, and those are going to be the major levels of support and resistance for that day, so make sure to grab a hold of those. And in the afternoon session, we go over either market psychology or a trade that we had that day that we kind of cover in an overview type method. It gives us a little bit of a view in how everything worked out, and it's a good training topic just to kind of give us, you know, a bird's eye view, if you will, zooming out, speeding things up to see how everything was managed and how everything went along. Now, if you haven't done so already, click on the live trade room subscription and trial info, and from here you can sign up for a one-day trial in the room. You can sit down with us, you can see our screens, you can trade along with us for a day and see what we're all about. Of course, you can always ask questions, you get to meet the members. It's a really cool way just to see if we're a good fit for your type of trading, and you know, if you're looking to kind of get the quiet, right, that we all kind of have to deal with trading alone at home in the dungeon or in the loft, if you will. It's kind of nice to have a little voice in the background. So it's a great way to see what we're all about. If you haven't done so already, make sure to do it, and then you can kind of check us out. Now, jumping into the euro, we have a pretty good rip higher on the euro. The early morning move right after about 9 o'clock or so had a beautiful explosion to the upside, and then we died off for a couple hours before rallying back up again, dying off again, rallying up again. But one big thing that stands out here, notice the distances, right? This breakout was this breakout was this, and this breakout was this. We're getting sequentially lower every single time it tries to make a breakout. It's not going as far, and that gives us a pretty big clue that the buyers are running out of steam. They're not so much interested in buying at the highs, looking for it to go further and make money on more of a breakout type move. Now they're starting to take a little more off at the highs. It pulls back, makes another high, take a little bit more off at the highs until they eventually just don't have anything left because they've taken profit at all of the highs, and we end up just kind of meandering around here. That's where we start getting those deeper pullbacks. That's where we start trapping some of those prior lows. That becomes those areas of interest where you're looking to buy in cheap. Buyers don't want to buy high anymore, so they're looking for a better price. Now, on this pullback, we do have the potential of this turning into a little bit of a spiking channel. We have that big spike up, pretty obvious to see. Copying that down into a channel. We also have the possible wedge that has broken, and that does, I mean, it does create a little bit of an area of interest depending on how aggressively this rallies higher. But for the most part, we're starting to near into the bottom of that channel, and well, this is where you anticipate seeing some buyers coming in as you know, trying to get that lift back up to a new high. Now, the overall sort of area that I'm looking for in terms of buying pressure, 15,830, 15,656, 15,520. If they really want to pull down deep, then you've got 15,330. But for the most part, the big one that I'm really looking for is just a trap underneath 15,830. That's where we found a bunch of balance from before. That's right around those prior swing highs. Everything is kind of finding some balance. So this zone that's created between those two levels of support, that's kind of the buy zone. That's where the hotbed of buyers are going to be, waiting for that nice cheap price so they can rocket ship the market back up again. So that's the zone that I'm looking for. Right inside here, if we draw a box on it, you can see it a little bit easier. Right inside there is where we're looking for some buying pressure to try to pop the market back up. If it goes further, then good. We can get some better prices, but for the most part, that's where I'm anticipating most of the buyers hanging out. Over on gold, good continuation to the upside. Again, another traveling type of range where you have a big breakout up, sideways, deep pullback in this case, but for the most part, they just continued that same range for quite a while, and then broke out again and got really choppy on the way up here. Pretty standard directional bias though. Everything was still pointing north. Every time they tried to pull back, it was quickly scooped right back up again and shot higher, and there were quite a few deep pullbacks here on gold today, and now we're forming one of the biggest ones that we've had all day. It makes a lot of sense. We're going into the end of the day, we're just cycling off of the most recent high, and just like we were talking about in the euro, copy paste, right? The buyers are buying in, they're buying in aggressively, they keep buying all of these pullbacks inside here, and they get this aggressive breakout high. They start taking profit, pulls back, pushes up, they take profit again, pulls back, pushes up, they take profit again, and now they're starting to run out of contracts. There's just nothing left for them to sell, and the market begins sort of a transition phase into more of a range. We can already see the potential bottom of the range being put in, and the highs are starting to look pretty good as well. So for the most part, likely the buyers are looking for better prices here as well, and we're expecting a slightly deeper pullback. Now the larger channel that's in play, we're coming off of the midline, and that does coincide with monthly support at 41.4, but I would still like to see a slightly deeper pullback towards where really after that initial burst higher, that first pullback they had, right around those lows. Now, the other reason that I'm keeping an eye on that is because if we look at this area, we had that 3 push wedge top and a retest, good sign of failure and continuation for a deeper pullback. We have a rising level of support, we have a horizontal level of support, and those prior swing highs back here, just like on the euro, again, pretty much copy paste, but we are creating a little bit of a kill zone. We have just a bunch of levels stacking up on one another, and that looks to be about a 50% pullback as well. So we're getting a lot of things stacking up in the same area, which could allow the buyers to really hammer into this move and rocket that market right back up towards the highs. So I'm looking for the first buying opportunity at 39.3, we have a cluster of support at 38.2 and 0.1, and then a little bit deeper at 36.6, 34.7. Those are the hopeful buys, right? We hope that it goes down that far so we can get some good price, but chances are it's going to get stopped at around 39.3 to 38.1. Now over on crude oil, if you haven't done so already, make sure to roll over. Crude oil's volume has rolled over to the 917, so we are updated to the new front month. And overall, we really didn't accomplish a whole lot. Pretty much just a giant wedge. We are approaching the highs of that wedge, and we are getting close to a kind of a kill zone here for the sell side. We have weekly resistance coming into play at 46.68. We have the earlier swing that was the swing low, that massive run higher, that little tiny pullback, and then a big continuation. Those areas tend to be a big area of interest. So we have that as an area of resistance. That also is the prior swing high. We have weekly resistance coming into play, and now the falling wedge, all creating a little bit of a kill zone here for a possible turn lower to try to get back down to that monthly support between 46.35 and 33. We are still in a wedge, and a lot of times when you have these types of ranges, you want to zoom out and get a better feel for where the market wants to go, and it is an upward bias. So although we are setting up a little bit of a kill zone for a short, I don't necessarily want to stay in it too long because we've been rallying higher for the past week, if not a little bit longer. So short side I think is okay, but not hanging on to it as long as if we were coming down into a clustered support like we have here, for a bounce, looking to hang on to that for possibly a rally back up towards those highs again. But in either way, we're looking for an area of resistance coming into play right now, looking for a selling attempt down to monthly support, and then from there, looking to buy it right back up and just play this wedge until it breaks out. So really, we're mostly in a range, or at least a wedge range. Buy low, sell high, stay out of the middle. Over on the S&P, big range. We really didn't get a whole lot done today. If we zoom out, we can see that that same range has been playing its part for the last couple days. We just attempted to break out of it. It got a double press through the bottom, didn't really get much further, and started turning right back around. So this is a failure against the trend, which is important, right? That's why we like knowing what the trend is. This is obviously a bullish market, so we're looking for the sellers to give it a go, get them stuck in the move, and then shove the stops down their throats, because right now we have an attempted sell side breakout, it is failing, and there are a lot of sellers who are probably pretty darn nervous right now if they're still in the position. So overall, looking for the buy side to come in, especially if we can get another pullback to the lows of that range to pop the market back up to fresh new highs once again. So pretty straightforward game plan here on the S&P. We're in a range. We have some deep pullback areas, 24.50 and a quarter, obviously down to 24.48 and a quarter if it would be so kind as to give us that pullback. But otherwise, looking at monthly support, 51 and a half down to 50 and a quarter for those buying opportunities. We do have a last line in the sand for the sellers sitting at 57 and 3/4. If we can start breaking above that before we get that deep pullback, we may just end up in a situation where we have to use that as support instead. But either way, looking for those fresh highs right around the corner. So that's going to be the outlook. Now, in terms of the news for tomorrow, this whole week has been not really busy in terms of news. Tomorrow at 8:30, we do have U.S. news coming out for building permits, forecasted at 1.2 million. The previous was 1.168. Also at 10:30, of course, tomorrow is Wednesday, so we have the crude oil inventories forecasted negative 3.214. The previous was a whopping negative 7.564. And that's really it for the U.S. session. So really the only U.S. news tomorrow that we have to deal with is the 8:30. After that, it's inventories for crude only. Later at night tomorrow at 21:30 Eastern out of Australia, we have the employment change. And then, of course, tentatively throughout the day, we have the Bank of Japan monetary policy statement and the outlook report coming out. But that's likely not going to have an effect until closer towards midnight or so. So outside of that, that's really going to do it. Like we always say, especially when you have light news like we've seen this entire week, we've got to play it really safe. And that's where it comes into play, where you got to make that plan. Trade the plan, follow those rules, and you'll do A-okay. Until next time, we'll see y'all then.